The fundamental difference in thinking begins with understanding what wealth really is. Wealth isn't money. Money is just a tool. Wealth is having assets that work for you while you sleep. Wealth is having your money make more money. Wealth is creating systems and structures that generate income whether you show up or not. But here's what's fascinating. Most people never learn to think this way because they've never disciplined their thinking about money. You see, discipline isn't just about doing things you don't want to do. Discipline is about training your mind to think thoughts that serve your future rather than thoughts that serve your immediate comfort. And when it comes to wealth, the undisciplined mind thinks in terms of spending, consuming, immediate gratification. The disciplined mind thinks in terms of investing, building, and delayed gratification. Let me share with you a story that illustrates this perfectly. Years ago, I knew two men who worked at the same company, made the same salary, and lived in the same neighborhood. One of them retired wealthy and the other retired broke. What made the difference? It wasn't their income. It wasn't their education. It wasn't even their opportunities. The difference was in how they thought about every dollar that came into their hands. The man who retired wealthy had disciplined his thinking to see every dollar as a seed that could be planted to grow more dollars. When he got his paycheck, his first thought wasn't, what can I buy with this? His first thought was, how much of this can I invest to work for me? The man who retired broke had an undisciplined mind that saw every dollar as something to be spent. His first thought was always, what do I want that I can afford? This is what I call the wealth mindset versus the poverty mindset, and it all starts with disciplining your thinking. You see, your mind is like a garden. If you don't deliberately plant good seeds, good thoughts, weeds will grow automatically. And the weeds of financial thinking are thoughts like, I can't afford it. Money doesn't grow on trees. Rich people are greedy, and I'll never have enough. But here's what successful people have learned to do. They've learned to discipline their thinking by replacing limiting thoughts with empowering thoughts. Instead of thinking, I can't afford it, they think, how can I afford it? Instead of thinking money doesn't grow on trees, they think money grows when I plant it wisely. Instead of thinking rich people are greedy, they think wealthy people have learned principles I can learn too. This shift in thinking isn't just philosophical, it's practical. When you discipline your mind to think differently about wealth, you begin to see opportunities that were invisible before. You begin to make different choices with your money. You begin to associate with different people. You begin to read different books. You begin to have different conversations. Everything changes when your thinking changes. Now, let me tell you about the first principle of disciplined thinking when it comes to wealth. Successful people think long-term while unsuccessful people think short-term. This is absolutely crucial to understand. The undisciplined mind wants immediate results, immediate satisfaction, immediate rewards. But wealth building is a long-term game, and you cannot play a long-term game with a short-term mindset. I've watched people make financial decisions based on what feels good today rather than what's good for their tomorrow. They buy things they want today with money they need for tomorrow. They choose comfort today over security tomorrow. They choose consumption today over investment tomorrow. And then they wonder why they're not wealthy. But successful people have trained their minds to think differently. They've learned to delay gratification. They've learned to make decisions based on where they want to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, not where they are today. They understand that every financial decision is either moving them toward wealth or away from wealth, and they discipline their thinking to always ask the question, will this decision serve my long-term financial goals? This leads us to the second principle of disciplined thinking about wealth. Successful people think in terms of assets while unsuccessful people think in terms of liabilities. Now, this might sound like accounting talk, but it's really about training your mind to recognize the difference between things that put money in your pocket and things that take money out of your pocket. The undisciplined mind sees a new car and thinks about how nice it would be to drive it. The disciplined mind sees a new car and thinks about how much money it will cost in payments, insurance, maintenance, and depreciation. The undisciplined mind sees a bigger house and thinks about how impressive it would be to live there. The disciplined mind sees a bigger house and calculates the opportunity cost of the larger mortgage payments. But here's where it gets interesting. Successful people don't just avoid liabilities, they actively seek assets. They train their minds to constantly look for opportunities to acquire things that will generate income. They look for rental properties, dividend-paying stocks, businesses they can buy or build, intellectual property they can create. Their minds are always working on the question, how can I get my money to work harder for me? This brings us to the third principle of disciplined thinking. Successful people think about creating value, while unsuccessful people think about getting value. This is a fundamental shift in perspective that changes everything about how you approach wealth building. The undisciplined mind is always asking, what can I get? The disciplined mind is always asking, what can I give? The undisciplined mind thinks wealth comes from taking. The disciplined mind understands that wealth comes from serving. The undisciplined mind looks for ways to get something for nothing. The disciplined mind looks for ways to give more value than expected. You see, in a free market economy, wealth is created by solving problems and serving people. The more problems you solve and the more people you serve, the more wealth you can create. But this requires discipline in your thinking to shift from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. Scarcity thinking says there's only so much to go around, so I need to get mine before someone else does. Abundance thinking says there's unlimited wealth available to those who learn to create value for others. When you discipline your thinking this way, you stop looking at wealthy people as competitors and start looking at them as teachers. You stop resenting their success and start studying their methods. You stop thinking that their wealth somehow diminishes your opportunities and start understanding that their wealth often creates opportunities for others. This leads us to the fourth principle: successful people think about systems while unsuccessful people think about events. The undisciplined mind focuses on individual transactions, individual paychecks, individual investments. The disciplined mind focuses on creating systems that produce consistent results over time. What do I mean by systems? I mean establishing automatic processes that move you toward wealth without requiring constant attention and effort. Successful people set up automatic investment plans that take money from their paychecks before they can spend it. They create businesses that generate income without requiring their constant presence. They build multiple streams of income so they're not dependent on any single source. The undisciplined mind thinks that wealth comes from working harder. The disciplined mind understands that wealth comes from working smarter by creating systems that leverage your time and effort. The undisciplined mind trades time for money. The disciplined mind creates systems that generate money without trading time. Now, here's the fifth principle that separates wealthy thinkers from poor thinkers. Successful people think about education while unsuccessful people think about entertainment. This is about how you choose to use your most valuable resource, your time, and what you choose to put into your mind. The undisciplined mind seeks entertainment, distraction, and escape. It wants to be amused, to be comfortable, to avoid the hard work of learning and growing. The disciplined mind seeks education, information, and skills that can be converted into wealth. It understands that the best investment you can make is in your own knowledge and abilities. Successful people are constantly learning about money, about investing, about business, about economics. They read books written by wealthy people. They attend seminars taught by successful entrepreneurs. They seek mentors who have achieved what they want to achieve. They understand that what you don't know about money will hurt you, and what you do know about money will help you. But here's what's interesting: the information about how to build wealth is freely available. It's in books and courses and seminars online. The difference between those who become wealthy and those who doubt isn't access to information. It's the discipline to seek out the right information and then apply it consistently over time. This brings us to the sixth principle: successful people think about taking responsibility while unsuccessful people think about placing blame. The undisciplined mind looks for external reasons why wealth isn't flowing into their life. It blames the economy, the government, their boss, their circumstances, their education, their background, their family. But the disciplined mind takes full responsibility for their financial situation. It understands that regardless of external circumstance, they have choices about how to respond. They can choose to learn new skills. They can choose to change their habits. They can choose to find new opportunities. They can choose to associate with different people. They can choose to think different thoughts. Taking responsibility isn't about guilt or shame, it's about power. When you blame external circumstances for your financial situation, you give away your power to change it. When you take responsibility, you reclaim the power to create different results. And wealthy people understand that wealth is created by people who take responsibility for creating it. The seventh principle is this: successful people think about giving while unsuccessful people think about getting. This might seem counterintuitive when we're talking about building wealth, but it's absolutely crucial to understand. The disciplined, wealthy mind understands that wealth flows to those who contribute to the flow, not to those who try to stop it. What does this mean practically? It means learning to be generous even when you don't have much. It means contributing to causes you believe in. It means helping others succeed. It means sharing your knowledge and resources. It means understanding that wealth is not a zero-sum game where your gain requires someone else's loss. When you discipline your thinking to focus on giving value rather than just getting money, something magical happens. Opportunities begin to appear. People want to do business with you. Referrals flow your way. Joint ventures present themselves. You become a magnet for the very wealth you're seeking to create. But here's what you must understand about discipline in your thinking. It's not something you do once and forget about. It's an ongoing process that requires constant attention and effort. Your mind, left to its own devices, will drift back toward undisciplined thinking patterns. That's why successful people have developed habits and practices that keep their thinking on track. They start each day by reading something that reinforces positive thinking about wealth and success. They surround themselves with people who think the way they want to think. They regularly review their financial goals and adjust their strategies. They celebrate their progress and learn from their setbacks. They understand that disciplined thinking is like physical fitness. It requires ongoing maintenance. Now let me tell you about the compound effect of disciplined thinking. Just as money compounds when you invest it wisely, disciplined thinking compounds over time. Each good financial decision makes the next good decision easier. Each positive thought about wealth makes the next positive thought more natural. Each disciplined action builds the mental muscle for the next disciplined action. But here's the challenge. The compound effect works both ways. Undisciplined thinking also compounds. Each bad financial decision makes the next bad decision more likely. Each negative thought about money makes the next negative thought more automatic. Each undisciplined action weakens your ability to make disciplined choices. That's why it's so important to start disciplining your thinking about wealth right now, regardless of your current financial situation. Whether you're starting with nothing or you already have some wealth, the principles remain the same. Your thinking today is creating your financial reality tomorrow. Let me share with you a practical exercise that can help you begin disciplining your thinking about wealth immediately. For the next 30 days, I want you to pay attention to every thought you have about money. When you think about your paycheck, notice what thoughts come up. When you see something you want to buy, notice your internal dialogue. When you hear about someone else's financial success, notice your reaction. Don't judge these thoughts, just notice them. Awareness is the first step toward change. Once you become aware of your current thinking patterns, you can begin to consciously choose different thoughts. You can begin to replace limiting thoughts with empowering thoughts. You can begin to discipline your mind to think the way wealthy people think. Here's another practical step. Start studying wealthy people. Read their biographies. Listen to their interviews. Learn about their strategies and philosophies. But don't just study what they did, study how they thought. Pay attention to their mindset, their beliefs, their mental frameworks. Understanding how wealthy people think is the key to thinking like them yourself. And here's something else that's crucial. You must understand that becoming wealthy isn't about becoming a different person. It's about becoming more of who you already are, but with disciplined thinking about money. You don't have to compromise your values or change your personality. You just have to change your thinking patterns about wealth and financial success. The truth is, we all have the capacity for wealth-building thinking. We all have the ability to discipline our minds. We all have access to the information and strategies we need. What separates those who build wealth from those who don't is the decision to take control of their thinking and the discipline to maintain that control over time. Let me tell you what happens when you truly discipline your thinking about wealth. First, you start making different choices with your money. Instead of spending impulsively, you invest strategically. Instead of buying liabilities, you acquire assets. Instead of consuming your income, you save and invest a portion of it. Second, you start seeing opportunities that were invisible before, business opportunities, investment opportunities, partnership opportunities. When your mind is trained to look for ways to create and build wealth, you begin to see possibilities everywhere. Third, you start attracting different people into your life, like-minded individuals who are also building wealth. Mentors who can guide you, partners who can collaborate with you. Your network becomes an asset that contributes to your wealth-building efforts. Fourth, you develop financial confidence. Instead of worrying about money, you start feeling excited about your financial future. Instead of feeling like a victim of economic circumstances, you start feeling like the architect of your financial destiny. But perhaps most importantly, you start understanding that wealth isn't the end goal. It's a means to an end. Disciplined thinking about wealth helps you realize that money is a tool for creating the life you want, for serving the people you care about, and for making the contribution you want to make to the world. This is why disciplining your thinking about wealth is so important. It's not just about accumulating money. It's about developing the mental framework that allows you to create financial freedom, which in turn gives you the freedom to live according to your values and pursue your dreams. Now, I want to address something that might be going through your mind right now. You might be thinking, this all sounds good, but what about my current circumstances? What about my debts, my low income, my lack of opportunities? Here's what I want you to understand. Your current circumstances are the result of your past thinking. If you want different circumstances in the future, you must start thinking differently now. Successful people have learned that you can't change your life by changing your circumstances. You change your life by changing your thinking, and then your circumstances change as a result. This is why two people can have the same circumstances and end up with completely different financial outcomes. The difference is in their thinking. Let me give you an example. I know two people who both lost their jobs during an economic downturn. One person spent their time complaining about the economy, blaming their former employer, and worrying about their financial future. The other person spent their time learning new skills, networking with other professionals, and looking for opportunities that the economic situation might have created. Can you guess which one ended up in a better financial position? The second person not only found a better job, but eventually started their own business and became wealthy. The first person struggled for years to find work and never recovered financially. Same circumstances, different thinking, different results. This is the power of disciplined thinking about wealth. It doesn't change your circumstances immediately, but it changes how you respond to your circumstances, and that makes all the difference in your long-term financial success. Here's another crucial aspect of disciplined thinking about wealth. You must learn to think probabilistically rather than in absolutes. The undisciplined mind thinks in terms of guarantees and certainties. It wants to know exactly what will happen and when. But wealth building, like life itself, involves uncertainty and risk. The disciplined mind understands that wealth building is about improving your odds, not about guarantees. It's about making decisions that have a high probability of producing positive results over time. It's about managing risk intelligently rather than trying to eliminate it completely. This means learning to be comfortable with uncertainty while still taking calculated risks. It means understanding that temporary setbacks don't mean permanent failure. It means staying focused on long-term trends rather than short-term fluctuations. Successful people have trained their minds to think this way. They understand that building wealth is like playing a game where you don't need to win every hand, but you need to win more than you lose over time. They make decisions based on probability and expected value rather than fear and emotion. This brings me to another key point about disciplined thinking: emotion management. The undisciplined mind is controlled by emotions, especially fear and greed. Fear prevents it from taking necessary risks. Greed causes it to take unnecessary risks. Both emotions lead to poor financial decisions. The disciplined mind acknowledges emotions but isn't controlled by them. It uses logic and reason to make financial decisions. It understands that wealth building requires a steady, consistent approach rather than emotional reactions to market conditions or financial setbacks. This is why successful people can remain calm during market downturns while others panic and sell their investments at the worst possible time. This is why they can continue investing when others are too scared to take action. This is why they can stick to their long-term plans when others are constantly changing strategies based on emotional reactions. Learning to manage your emotions when it comes to money is a crucial part of disciplining your thinking about wealth. It requires developing what I call financial emotional intelligence, the ability to make rational decisions about money, even when your emotions are telling you to do something else. Now, let me talk about the role of goals in disciplined thinking about wealth. The undisciplined mind either has no financial goals or has vague, unrealistic goals. It might say things like, I want to be rich, or I want to make a lot of money, but these aren't really goals, they're wishes. The disciplined mind sets specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound financial goals. Instead of I want to be rich, it says I want to have a net worth of $1 million by age 50. Instead of I want to make a lot of money, it says I want to increase my income by 20% this year. But here's what's even more important. The disciplined mind understands that goals are not just about the destination, they're about who you become in the process of achieving them. When you set a goal to build wealth, you're not just trying to accumulate money. You're trying to become the kind of person who can create and maintain wealth. This is why the journey is as important as the destination. The habits you develop, the skills you acquire, the relationships you build, the knowledge you gain. All of these are valuable assets that compound over time and contribute to your long-term financial success. Disciplined thinking about wealth also involves understanding the difference between price and value. The undisciplined mind focuses on price. It wants to pay as little as possible for everything. The disciplined mind focuses on value. It wants to get the best return on investment for everything. This doesn't mean wealthy people don't care about price. It means they understand that sometimes paying more upfront results in greater value over time. They'll pay more for quality investments that produce better returns. They'll pay more for education that increases their earning capacity. They'll pay more for tools and resources that make them more productive. The disciplined mind also understands the concept of opportunity cost, the idea that choosing one thing means giving up something else. Every financial decision involves trade-offs, and successful people have trained their minds to consider these trade-offs carefully. When they consider buying something, they don't just think about whether they can afford it. They think about what else they could do with that money. They think about whether this purchase will move them toward their financial goals or away from them. They think about whether this is the best use of their resources at this time. This kind of thinking becomes automatic with practice. It's not about being cheap or depriving yourself of things you enjoy. It's about being intentional with your financial choices and making sure they align with your long-term objectives. Let me share with you one more crucial aspect of disciplined thinking about wealth, the importance of multiple streams of income. The undisciplined mind depends on a single source of income, usually a job. If something happens to that job, the person's entire financial world can collapse. The disciplined mind works to create multiple streams of income from different sources. This might include salary from employment, income from investments, profits from a business, royalties from intellectual property, rental income from real estate, and so on. Having multiple income streams isn't just about making more money, it's about creating financial security and reducing risk. If one stream is disrupted, the others continue flowing. This gives you the confidence to take calculated risks and pursue opportunities that might not be available to someone who's completely dependent on a single income source. Creating multiple income streams requires disciplined thinking because it means sacrificing some short-term comfort for long-term security. It means using some of your current income to build future income sources. It means investing time and energy in activities that may not pay off immediately but will contribute to your wealth over time. As we near the end of our time together, I want to emphasize that disciplining your thinking about wealth is not a one-time event, it's a lifelong practice. Just as you need to maintain your physical health through ongoing exercise and proper nutrition, you need to maintain your financial thinking through ongoing education and practice. The good news is that it gets easier over time. The more you practice disciplined thinking about wealth, the more natural it becomes. The habits become automatic. The perspectives become ingrained. The strategies become second nature. But you must start where you are with what you have right now. You don't need to wait until you have more money to start thinking like a wealthy person. In fact, you need to start thinking like a wealthy person in order to have more money. The principles I've shared with you today are not theoretical concepts. They're practical tools that have been proven by thousands of successful people over many years. They work regardless of your current age, income, education, or circumstances. They work because they're based on universal principles of human psychology and economic reality. Your financial future is not determined by your past or your present circumstances. It's determined by the thoughts you think and the actions you take starting today. When you discipline your thinking about wealth, you take control of your financial destiny. You become the architect of your economic future rather than a victim of economic circumstances. The choice is yours. You can continue thinking the way you've always thought and continue getting the financial results you've always gotten. Or you can decide today to discipline your thinking, to adopt the mental frameworks of successful people, and to create the wealth you've always dreamed of having. Remember, success is not an accident. Wealth is not a matter of luck. Financial freedom is not reserved for a select few. These are the natural results of disciplined thinking applied consistently over time. And disciplined thinking is a skill that anyone can learn and anyone can master. The question is not whether you can learn to think like a wealthy person. The question is whether you will choose to do so. The information is available. The principles are proven. The only thing standing between you and financial success is the decision to discipline your thinking and the commitment to maintain that discipline over time. Your wealth building journey begins not with your first investment or your first business venture. It begins with your first disciplined thought about money. It begins with your decision to take control of your financial thinking and to align your mental patterns with your financial goals. The time to start is now. The place to start is in your mind. The way to start is by disciplining your thinking about wealth, one thought at a time, one day at a time, one decision at a time. Your future self will thank you for the disciplined thinking you choose to practice today.